Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 5 Reflections, Recap and Spoilers by Sam Stone, published September 22, 2022. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 has Rutherford's world turned upside down by a familiar face. Here's a spoiler-filled Paramount Plus recap. The following contains spoilers for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 5 Reflections, now streaming on Paramount Plus. Old mysteries resurface and new questions arise as Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 continues delivering plenty of Star Trek deep Old mysteries resurface and new questions arise as Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 continues delivering plenty of Star Trek deep cuts along the way. Another routine day on the USS Cerritos quickly leads to more shocking adventures. Sam Rutherford finally comes face-to-face with the secrets behind his cybernetic implant in shadowy past, while Beckett Mariner and Brad Boimler meet a shady figure who is more than meets the eye. Along the way, friendships are tested and the authority of Starfleet is challenged, with loose ends forming rather than being neatly tied up. CBR video of the day 0116-0310. Rutherford begins experiencing nightmares of the accident that led to him receiving his implant. Looking to help her friend, Devon Attendee clears Rutherford's memory cache with his permission, but this causes a more malevolent personality to take control of Rutherford's body when he attempts to sleep. After learning that Tendi is capable of restoring the true Rutherford back to normal, the sinister Rutherford attacks her before he is subdued by Chief Security Officer Shaxs and restrained in sickbay. Related, Star Trek Picard showrunner breaks down the series' new hero ship. Mariner and Boimler are tasked with representing Starfleet at a recruitment drive, with Commander Jack Ransom threatening to reassign Mariner to the dreaded Starbase 80 if she doesn't comply. The two junior officers' efforts are constantly sabotaged by Petra Aberdeen, a former Starfleet officer who is representing independent archaeologists at the event. Aberdeen coyly accuses Starfleet of being nothing more than a glorified military organization. Mariner is increasingly frustrated by Starfleet's reputation throughout the galaxy as the dark side to Star Trek's staple organization is revealed. While trapped within his subconscious, Rutherford realizes that the violent Rutherford is a younger version of himself that was not humbled in his enduring amnesia from the past accident. The younger Rutherford admits he has been attempting to reassert control ever since the character's new personality was programmed through the implant, having missed the impulsive side of himself. While illegally racing during his time at Starfleet Academy. In order to prove who should take control of their body, the two Rutherfords agree to an engineering challenge, with the winner assuming dominance. Related, Star Trek Picard Season 3 looks like the Next Generation movie we never got. After designing their own racing vehicles within their shared mindscape, the two Rutherfords race along an imagined version of the Romulan neutral zone. Rutherford's ship gains the edge through projections of his friends helping him man his craft, leading him to triumph over his other personality. When Rutherford reasserts control over his body, he learns that the accident and his implanted personality are both part of a Starfleet conspiracy, but is unable to gather more information because he regains consciousness. Surprisingly, it isn't Mariner but Boimler who angrily snaps when he is taunted over his uniform, leading him to launch into a heated outburst about Starfleet's importance while trashing other booths at the recruitment fair. This exuberant display prompts a visiting ransom to reprimand Boimler and confine him to the Cerritos brig for making a scene, but it does lead to a surge in interested recruits who speak to Mariner. The sowing of modern Starfleet distrust is shown to be an elaborate ruse orchestrated by Aberdeen, who uses Rutherford's rant as a distraction to steal from a nearby museum. Aberdeen thanks Mariner for unwittingly helping her, leaving another loose end for the junior officers to follow as the Cerritos sails back into deep space. Created by Mike McMahon, Star Trek Lower Decks releases new episodes Thursdays on Paramount+.
No. mm, 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 ne, ne,
Star Trek Lower Decks Episode 5 All the Easter eggs and references. Here's everything you might have missed in Star Trek Lower Decks Episode 5. There's lots of deep Trek lore to be found. This article contains spoilers for Star Trek Lower Decks Episode 5. This episode of Star Trek Lower Decks pays tribute to the oldest Trek monster of them all, slips in a few overt references to Enterprise, and even gives us a Geordi LaForge teddy bear. Although Star Trek Day isn't until next week, on September 8th, Star Trek Lower Decks is paying tribute to the first aired Trek episode of all time by stuffing its latest episode with more references to the franchise than it's ever done before. Yes, somehow, Cupid's errand arrow seems to have more shoutouts and callbacks than all the other episodes of Lower Decks combined. We're not sure if this is true, or whether some clever space-time compression is at work, but this episode seemed a lot like a Captain Kirk Sunday, with Trip Tucker sprinkles, and a side helping of a Will Riker burger. Yeah, 2 of those jokes are actually from this episode. Here are all the Easter eggs, references, and shoutouts we caught in Star Trek Lower Decks Episode 5 Cupid's Errand Arrow. As real as a hopped-up queue on Captain Picard Day. Boimler says his new girlfriend Barb is as real as a hopped-up queue on Captain Picard Day. This references Q, of course, both the character played by John de Lancey in TNG, DS9, and Voyager. But it also references the species of the Q continuum in general. Captain Picard Day comes from the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, The Pegasus, and is generally agreed to be June 16th on our calendar. This is the second Captain Picard Day reference in from a new Trek series in 2020. In the first episode of Picard, Remembrance, Jean-Luc saw his Captain Picard Day banner, made by children on the Enterprise 1701D, in his personal archive. Love on the holodeck. When Mariner accuses Boimler of having holodeck girlfriends, he protests, saying, "I don't do that anymore." Characters on Star Trek, specifically The Next Generation, have a long history of falling in love with holograms. Reginald Barclay was probably the biggest offender here, and, in Hollow Pursuits, he made 2 holographic recreations of Deanna Troi. Geordi fell in love with a hologram of Dr. Leah Brahms in the episode Booby Trap, and Riker nearly fell in love with Minuet in 11,000,001. Get the best of Den of Geek delivered right to your inbox. Later in the episode, Barb says she believed the Mariner was a rogue holodeck character, which could also be a reference to 11,000,001, since Minuet's job was to keep Picard and Riker distracted while the Binars messed with the Enterprise. But, when we think of rogue holodeck characters, we generally think of Moriarty from the Sherlock Holmes episodes Elementary, My Dear Data, and Ship in a Bottle. Boimler referenced the holographic Moriarty just last week in the Lower Decks episode, Moist Vessel. Geordi LaForge teddy bear. While waiting to meet Barb, Boimler is clearly holding a teddy bear meant to remind us of Geordi LaForge. Does the bear's uniform match the TNG era? Or should we not worry about the teddy bear's uniform? Phylogeny. Mariner offers to set up Boimler with a Phylogeny, who works on the Cerritos, and mentions she seems like a nice plant person. Phylogenies are plant people. This race of plant-based aliens originated in an episode of the animated series called The Infinite Vulcan. Is Barb a Time Lord? While catching up with Boimler, Barb says that in a previous mission she had to reverse the polarity and reboot the time stream. Variants of the phrase "reverse the polarity of the neutron flow." is a catchphrase usually associated with the Doctor from Doctor Who. It mostly originates during the 1970s Third Doctor era of Jon Pertwee, specifically the episodes The Terror of the Ions, The Demons, and The Sea Devils. That said, the phrase "reverse the polarity" exists throughout all eras of Trek, starting with the TOS episode Who Mourns for Adonis, all the way through the Enterprise episode Harbinger. Barb claiming she rebooted the time stream is also a common Trek trope, and can be traced all the way back to TOS episodes like Tomorrow is Yesterday, and City on the Edge of Forever. 1920s Chicago. Barb's reference to being stuck in 1920s Chicago references the TOS episode, A Piece of the Action, where the crew encounters an entire planet of 1920s mobsters. However, in that episode, there was zero time travel, just a planet of alien mobster imitators. Hunky Trek dudes intimidated a hot hunk named Jet. Boimler says that guy is like a Kirk Sundae with Trip Tucker sprinkles. Obviously, this references Captain James T. Kirk and the chief engineer of the Enterprise NX-01, Charles Trip Tucker. Starfleet relationships ending very badly. Mariner says that when a Starfleet relationship seems too good to be true, then red alert, it probably is. Then she launches into a litany of examples. Star Wars Andor Episode 5 Review: The Axe Forgets. She's an alien who is going to eat you. Most aliens in Trek don't actually eat people, but aliens who suck out the life force of people they're pretending to date are fairly common. For example, in the DS9 episode, the Muse Jake Sisko is having his energy drained by a creature who is pretending to be an older woman who loves him but is really draining his life force. Or a Romulan spy. This probably references the Romulan spy T'Pel from the episode Data's Day, though nobody was trying to date her. In Picard, Agnes Girardi was an unwitting Romulan spy, though it's unclear if the Lower Decks writing team knew about that when this episode was completed. Or Assault Succubus, This is the big one. In the first aired Trek episode ever, the man-trapped, the shape-shifting M113 life form pretends to be McCoy's old girlfriend Nancy Crater but also turns into a variety of other attractive people and attempts to seduce several crew members, and even, in the guise of a hunky dude, makes a pass at Uhura. Note: Uhura is the only person who didn't fall for this salt vampires bullshit. Or an android. In TOS, Nurse Chapel falls in love with a secret android duplicate of her old boyfriend Roger Corby in the episode, What Are Little Girls Made Of? And, in the TOS episode, Requiem for Methuselah, Kirk falls in love with Reyna, who is also his secret android. Or a changeling. There are a lot of people who fall in love with shapeshifters in Star Trek, but saying a changeling probably refers to the actual species of changelings from Deep Space Nine, of which Odo is the most famous. Or one of those sexy people in rompers who murder you just for going on the grass. This references the episode Justice, in which Wesley falls in some grass and is nearly murdered by scantily clad people who were previously flirting with everyone. DS9 Old Uniform Flashback. Mariner's flashback to her time on the USS Keto seems to take place while the ship is docked at Deep Space Nine. Notably, the crew does not appear to actually be drinking on the space station, but rather, on their own ship. Because this flashback takes place prior to 2280, Mariner and her shipmates are wearing the later-era Starfleet uniforms with the gray shoulders first introduced in Star Trek: First Contact. For more about what this all might mean, read our deep dive into this flashback scene here. Mariner's conspiracy chart. There are probably more Easter eggs in this scene than the entire show combined, but let's do our best. Mariner has several pictures of several Trek aliens displayed, and she mentions some of them, but others are just kind of there. Here's what we spotted. Barb's not a dolphin. Mariner points to a picture of a furry alien called a dolphin, which comes from the TNG episode The Dolphin, in which Wesley Crusher's new girlfriend is revealed to be a furry shape-shifting monster with claws. A picture of Lal, Data's first daughter. In one corner, there seems to be an image of the android Lal, before she had decided on her gender and species. This version of Lal exists in the teaser of the TNG episode, The Offspring. She could be a Sula. Seska was revealed to be a spy in the episode, State of Flux. Duros Sisters, the Klingon traders Larissa and Bator seem to be pictured here, too. At this point, in 2380, the Duros Sisters have been dead for 9 years. They died in Star Trek Generations when the Enterprise destroyed their bird of prey. That said, maybe they managed to escape. Transporter clone. Mariner has a picture of two Barbs standing next to each other in the transporter. This references various transporter duplicates throughout Star Trek. The most famous examples are Kirk's transporter duplicate in the TOS episode The Enemy Within, and Riker's transporter duplicate in the TNG episode Second Chances. M113 Salt Vampire. Mariner has a very prominent picture of the M113 creature in its natural state. This is actually the second time this creature from The Man Trap has appeared in animated form.